Hey guys, Shay Baker here, predicting patterns. We're going to do an episode on the Redcrest Major League Fishing's Championship for the Bass Pro Tour, and I got a special guest today, Randy Howell. How's it going, Randy?
I'm doing great. Shay, how you doing?
I'm doing good, bud. I appreciate the time. And so, you got some history up there. You finished, I think, top 10 3 out of 4 times up there, and unfortunately, in this situation, you missed out by basically one fish throughout the whole season with the Bass Pro Tour, and that's got to be pretty rough.
Yeah, man, it is. I tell you, being the first season like that, it was really exciting to be able to be in the first championship event. And I'm telling you, we, used to on, bass, we always, Bassmaster, typically it was about 40 guys with the crossovers, that would always make the classic. And this field is slightly smaller, but it's so stacked with so much talent, and only taking 30 out of the 80 just really makes it stout where you couldn't have any stumble anywhere, and I had 6 out of 8 tournaments where I made the cut, got a check, fished on the knockout round, but 2 of those tournaments that I did bad in, I did real bad in. I just didn't, I finished 70th at Smith Lake, which was really disappointing because being close to home here, and I caught a lot of fish, still caught like 40 some pounds. I just didn't catch enough because everybody caught so many with the spotted bass deal. And North Carolina, where I moved to Alabama from, that part of the country I grew up in, that was my worst tournament of the year. That was another big disappointment. So I still had my chance at the last one in Wisconsin. I had missed it by 1 pound and 5 ounces, and I was in, and then right in the end, Randall Tharp and Mark Daniels Jr. both caught a couple good fish, and they both jumped me, and I didn't catch back up. And if I could just caught one more, we didn't know all that was happening because it was all taking place so quickly. If I just caught one more fish, I'd be talking about fishing it instead of talking about missing it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if you lose a 5-pounder in the Elite Series or the FLW Tour or whatever, it matters. But in this deal, if you lose a 12-incher or, a 13-inch, whatever it takes to get to a pound, every single fish counts. So you got to have, in your mind, there's probably 20 fish that came off throughout the year that you think, if I just got that little fish in the boat,
Yeah, I was watching my wrap-up video footage from my GoPro, just a few weeks back when we were putting it all together for the wrap up, and I had one fish that day that got off on a frog, and it was the only one I lost that whole day, and I knew when I hooked him into a mat of grass on a frog, I set the hook and bowed up good with him, and I brought him out of the hole, and then I was starting to kind of drag him over the grass, and I looked and zoomed in on that video on that GoPro, and it was clearly a 2.5+ pound fish, and I was sitting there thinking, gosh, if I could just drug that fish just a little further and swung him in the boat right there, man, that's all it would have taken. But when it happens, you don't have any idea that's going to make that much difference until it's all over. That's why when people, a bunch of people still say, man, catching 1 pound fish, I don't know why y'all get so excited about a 1 pound, pound and a half fish. It's not. That ain't a big deal, but when you're in the competition and you know what's on the line, and then you see it does come down to a 1 pound fish to win or lose, and to separate me from being able to fish for $300,000, that 1 pound fish is big,
Yeah.
And that's what people sometimes can't see, what we see it or how we see it. That's why we get so excited about that little fish,
Well, it's totally different, but it also is similar in some ways to this kayak deal. I've kind of gotten big in it the last few weeks, and what I've loved about it is every little fish matters. Like you catch 2-pounder, spin your boat around, and there was countless, over the years in a bass boat, I catch a 14-inch fish, I just chunk it out the back of the boat, don't think twice about it. Where's the next bite? And so it's kind of, makes it all more interesting. Like I said, every little fish counts. It don't matter as long as it's over a pound. You're making progress, and so. Anyway, for this lacrosse deal, I covered one of the Elite Series up there, maybe 2 of them with y'all. I think I was at the one where Brandon got disqualified fishing the Minnesota waters, I believe it was. And then I covered Edwin Evers in one of those, and we talked a little bit, you and I, before we started recording here, and you were talking about the froggy water. It is beautiful frog water up there. Is that?
Yeah.
What do you think is going to play the most? Is it going to be a mix?
Yeah, I'm thinking, I've fished it 4 times, and the first 3 times, in a row, I finished 10th, and 9th, and 11th, I think. So I made the top 12 cut every time, and each time I caught a mixed bag with a little bit of smallmouth, but majority largemouth, and I caught them cranking my howler square bill, my Livingston crankbait on square bill on rocks. They got tons of riprap jetties that are man-made jetties to break the water flow up and down that river. And on pool 8, where the tournament will be mostly held, is on pool 8. They'll change to pool 7, I think, on the championship round, but pool 8 has the most jetties, the most current, most good riverbanks and creek mouths. Plus, it's also on the lower end of 8 down toward the dam. It's got some of the best frog backwater fishing and lily pads, and just great stuff. And you can catch, up there, a 3-pounder is a good fish. A 3-pound average with a 5-fish limit was always what separated you from the 12 cut. And if you just had a 2.5-pound average, you'd be 80th out of 100 people. But if you had a 3-pound average, you'd make the cuts. It was so stacked in there. I mean, 2 pounds, was a huge difference in between. So that lower end, that's where the frog and the slop will play out big, and I think that's where some of the 4 or 5-pound fish will be caught. Most of the fish that get caught out there on that river, cranking and all, are your good solid, 2 to 2 3/4 pound chunks. And if somebody gets the smallmouth pattern going, depending on the water flow, Biffle did real good. Did Biffle win that one there one time?
I think so.
That, or was he just in the top?
I think he won on that Biffle head deal, but I can't remember for sure.
Did. Yeah, he got on the smallmouth and a couple of them blow-throughs on them sandbars. And I'm telling you, that's one thing that started progressively showing up more, were the bigger smallmouth. Every time we've been there each year, they play a little more a factor. And especially now in the Major League Fishing format, you don't have to keep fish, so it eliminates the problem with any, culling and the fish in Minnesota versus Wisconsin. Now they catch, weigh, release right immediately, so they don't have to worry about all that nonsense there.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, that whole deal that got pilot disqualified is irrelevant now if you don't put one in the live well.
Exactly right.
That's awesome.
It works out good now. Nobody don't have to worry about that anymore. So I think this will be a unique dynamic on this river here, because, unlike some of the tournaments where, like at Table Rock or Smith Lake last year, where you had a dominant spotted bass mix in the lake with the largemouth, so you really had to target the spotted bass and the numbers, because that was, what was going to dominate. But in a river system where the smallmouth and the largemouth in there are all the same, average 2 to 4 pound size, and you catch them mixed anywhere on anything. I mean, it's really not one thing you can do that just catches a 4-pounder versus a 2-pounder. I don't think you can catch mixed size, so it's going to be interesting to see. I think everybody will play the game, play their own strength on that river. Where like the I don't know if Hackney made it or not. I don't even remember. He might not even made it. Like me, it seemed like I saw his name outside too. But I was just say people like Hackney or Randall Tharp's in it. He did real good there and almost won. Maybe he did win the last Bassmaster we had there, I think. And then some of them guys that are big fish flippers or froggers, I think those guys will be able to fish their strength and do exactly what they want to do and still compete the same as if somebody chases crankbait fish on the main river. I think it'll all be kind of equal and just be who can catch the most of that same quality fish.
I got the satellite. This is just a bizarre fishery. I got the satellite image pulled up on the Angler app, and it just from the aerial view, it's a maze, of little channel. Are all these navigable? I mean, do you run up on sandbars pretty regular here?
Boy, there's a lot of that stuff that you see from the satellite view that you really can't even access. And I flew over it the first year we were going there. I've got a few buddies up that way, and one of the guys had a friend that had an airplane. It was like a crop duster guy, and I paid him to take me up and fly me around on it, way before the cutoff when you could legally do that. And man, I thought it was going to help me getting up in the air to see it, but it really confused me more than it helped me, because it was like I was seeing all this pretty stuff that I wanted to get to, and I'd be like, and I'd tell the guy, I said, man, look at that there. He said, oh, you can't get there. Oh, you can't get there. Oh, you can't get there on a boat. And he was right. I got out there, and and I'd run up on sandbars and blow mud, and I put the old Mercury through the ringer trying to get into some of that stuff that you really couldn't get to unless the water's real high. So like in spring, those guys can get in them places, but in the hot summer, the water's typically back down to normal or lower, and then you can't really get to them. So I think the main river and just those first little short canals and short places that have a little bit of water coming and going in and out of them that circulates in and out, I think that'll be the places. I don't think it'll be a lot of dead water way back in places that'll play as much.
There was a lot of current. It seems like you're talking about those little mouths and deal like Biffle did, and it just seemed like there was a lot of places where there was just weird current because it is such a snaky deal. Like 1 minute the current will be going up in a certain place, and then the next place it'll be going down. And does it kind of push through a lot of this lower end of 8 you were talking about? Does it push through a lot of that?
Yeah, that's what's interesting down there on that lower part of 8. The water down that whole left side of the river, and the river channel splits off, and the channel kind of will stay to the right, but then you'll have a big area of islands where there's a bunch of not canals, but just like little cut throughs and blow throughs, and that current flows all through those flats and goes all through that backwater, and it all continues to funnel right down to a bottleneck at the dam. So every time I would go up in those places, you had water moving beside lily pads and grass, and it was ever so slowly, but it was moving enough that it kept the water fresh, I think, and it never got stagnant. That's why that lower part of 8, I think, will be a big player, and it has been in our past Bassmaster tournaments. Faircloth and me and a whole bunch of guys. I can't even remember all the names, but it's a bunch of us in that same area down there catching them when I made the cut. And I think the one tournament, maybe the first one, Faircloth won. He was on some of the same fish I was on down there, and that lower part. I think it'll be really great for the guys with a 30-man field, because they'll have a small group of people fishing, on that water, and they'll have fresh water, and nobody, because you really can't beat that place up, even with a 100-man field there. The pressure still didn't seem to affect it too bad, and so with this small field, they should really smoke them down there on that lower end. My prediction is an area that you might want to look there and drop a pin on the screen is an area there called the Box of Rocks. They call it the Box of Rocks, and if you look, it's down there at the lower part of 8, and it's a boat ramp right down there, a big, public boat ramp. And it's probably 4 miles from the dam, and it's over on the running down river toward the dam. It's on the left side there, and it's right down. And that whole big area right inside there, if you see on the satellite map, it's a huge box built out of riprap rock, and that whole box just kind of is protecting that whole area from floods, because that area's got a bunch of houses and docks in it. It's real flat, and what I learned from research there the first year, all that area is built up with rocks. So when the floods come in the spring, it deflects that water and pushes it out and keeps it from flooding those homes in that area real bad. And it stays real fresh because water flows through those rocks. It's little blow throughs in them rocks where you can come out of one end and go out the other. And it's just matted up with grass and lily pads, and it's got little ditches all through it, and it's just like a prime frogging paradise right there.
Yeah, that I found it on here where you're talking. It's beside that little town called Stoddard.
Stoddard. I couldn't remember that name. Yeah. That's what it is, Stoddard.
It is beautiful. I think I might have covered a college tournament up there too, and I think a lot of the guys fished in there where you're talking about, because once you get in there, you spend your whole day moving around. And
yeah,
is that really kind of the deal, especially with every fish counting? Just get somewhere and camp out if you can, and try to catch as many, keep your bait in the water as long as possible.
Yeah, it probably is, and that'll be what'll be the two things. Like I was saying, it'll be how, depending on the water flow. If somebody gets on a good crankbait bite on the main river with the jetties and the rocks, that could way outnumber the frog fishing. The frog fishing is usually a slow, steady bite, that kind of sometimes it starts out a little slow and then it picks up later in the day. So you might, on a good frog day, you might catch 15 or 20 keepers. You can kind of just, my guess, at a good day. But if you get the riprap and the rock jetty bite going on the crankbait, you know, somebody could catch 10 or 15 on one jetty, and then, you know, get a pattern going without much pressure on the river. You know, not too many guys doing it. You know, somebody could catch 30 or 40 keepers or more out on that main river cranking. So that's going to be the thing to watch as it starts to play out that first day, just seeing the guys that start with that or commit to that versus the slop, and to see who plays the game right and which one is gonna dominate the other. You know.
So on the jetty deal and the riprap deal, I see a lot of docks up there too. Is it like these little places where you can come and go around these docks? Are the docks, do they play at all?
The docks really haven't been much of a factor that I've ever really seen there. Most of the docks on the lower end there at Stoddard are kind of in the matted duckweed and the grass area. Sometimes I've caught some around those, but most of the time it was never much talk about the docks. You know, and the docks that are all upriver, they were kind of just seemed like in barren areas. They didn't have a lot of, you know, cover around them. So it's mostly the rock jetties. You'll see the little fingers sticking out. You know, there's lots of the little fingers sticking out, you know, all the way down on the lower, and it's mostly on that lower Stoddard end. That's where the majority of that takes place. That's why I said it's about a 5 mile max, maybe a 3 to 5 mile radius down there. If somebody stays in that one area, I think that's the area that'll dominate. And I said that the first year, once we saw it in our tournament, it was like 6 or 7 out of the top 12 cut were all right there in that area the first year. And then the next year I focused on that more, and I made the cut again in that area. And same deal, it was probably 8 out of 12 guys I saw in that same area with me that made the 12 cut down there. So that area seems to dominate a lot.
So that's where everybody will compete, and then for the championship round, so they're going to go up a pool to 7. Is that right?
That's right, up to 7.
So
seven is more flat and less water flow and more flat duckweed and lily pads and just milfoil. It's just, and it looks like almost like part of Gunnersville. You know, it doesn't even look like a river on that lower end of 7. It just looks like a big, you know, paradise of duckweed and grass and milfoil and just nasty man. Stuff.
It's beautiful. I got a frog laying on my desk right now. It's got me wanting to go.
And a frog and a Cinco and a frog and a jig, and that'll probably be in a flipping bait for in thick stuff. And that's probably all you would need down there.
Is that where I used to run your GoPro and edit video and stuff for you, for folks that don't know that. Was that where you did the pink floating worm tournament?
No, not there. I don't think I did it there.
I don't think so. I can't remember where it was. It was around a lot more bushes and stuff. I can't remember where that was. But you had a lot of fish catches on the pink floating worm. But
yeah, I remember that. That was at the South Carolina River.
Yeah.
With a pink Cinco. That was at what was that called down there? We fished at South Carolina on the coast down there.
Is it Winyah?
It ran so far. What was it called?
Winyah Bay?
Winyah, that's it.
That's right.
Where that was at.
Is that something so the Cinco deal, the pink one, is that more in the spring? Is that when you do that?
Yeah, that's more of the springtime deal. I kind of once we get past the spawn, we start to get into June. It gets hot. That's when more of the green pumpkin brim colors start to come into play more then.
So if you had 3 rods on the deck for this whole tournament, be a frog, a Cinco, and a howler, square bill?
Yeah, square bill. The square bill on the rocks, the Cinco to follow up the missed ones on the frog, or to throw in the areas that, you know, that they don't hit the frog in, but in a frog, and that'd be the if it was 3 rods, that's all I would need. If I could have 4, then I'd have a jig, like a swim jig too. Swim jig's real good there too.
Yeah. So who do you predict? Pick me one for smallmouth being the key, and pick me one for the largemouth. Who do you got to win this thing?
Golly. It's so hard on this kind of a deal because the first several days, they'll accumulate and then go back to zero for the championship round on that totally different pool. So, the guy that could be 10th place and barely make the cut could be the guy to win on pool 7. So it's gonna be hard. Now Todd Faircloth is got good history there, and Todd's caught him good every time he's been there. And I've seen him in the same areas I'm in, so I guarantee you Todd will be a big player.
I like Todd. I like Todd too, because he's a good mix to me of a steady guy that can also win, and that's what you kind of got to do to get into the final day is be steady, but then have that killer instinct. He can do both, so I like that pick a lot.
Yeah, I do too. He's a strong one there, and you can't really just pick anybody or go against anybody because they're all stout anglers, And Jacob Wheeler's is won almost everything this year. He's on an unreal streak right now of confidence and momentum, and he's done well there too. So I mean, Wheeler's another one. I guarantee he'll be fishing on Sunday, and he'll be in contention anytime he's got that final day to come out and have a one-day shootout. He's hard to beat too. So Faircloth and Wheeler and Dustin Cannell from Alabama here. Dustin is a good junk fisherman. He's fast and he's efficient, and he's a good swim jig guy, good slot fisherman too. So man, I bet Cannell will be strong for one of the younger guys.
Yeah, he loves that current too. Coming up on the Coosa current, such a big player, and he reads it real well. So that's a good pick too.
So there's so many of them that have a good chance, man. It's going to be a fun event, and it'll probably be one of the closest events that we've ever seen because I guarantee that the weight won't be separated by much at all because everybody's going to catch them good, and it'll be just real few ounces between a lot of key people, I believe.
Yeah. Well, Randy, I appreciate it, bud. I'm going to cut you loose. Appreciate you spending some time with us. I wish you was fishing, and I know you do. But
and I do too. And I'm excited to get to be up there. We're flying up there Thursday, and I'll be up there working. Daiwa's going to have a good setup with a lot of new product showing, and there, and then Triton and Mercury and the Lowrance, and I'll be up there, bumping around all the booths working. So we hope to have a good crowd. They're advertising it big in that Midwest area out towards Chicago and over into Wisconsin, trying to draw a lot of people in from that area. So we're looking for a good area. So anybody pays attention or watching our interview day, y'all, if you're in that area, y'all come on out. There'll be the majority of the other guys that didn't make the cut will be there to interact with fans and do stuff. And we're doing a lot of community stuff, big kids fishing event, high school event. There'll be a lot going on there. So y'all come out and see us.
Cool deal. All right, buddy. I appreciate it. And I'll catch up with you later.
Okay. Thank you, Shay. Good luck. We'll see you guys later.
Thank you, bud. All right. Thanks, Randy. Appreciate it. Hope y'all enjoyed the show. Check us out next time. Predicting Patterns.